Okay, welcome back. I know it's been a while, it takes time in between, but life be busy. Life be busy, and that's what it is. But we're back now, and this time going to look over the Prince of Thorns, book one of the Broken Empire series by Mark Lawrence. And this was actually his debut novel, at least debut published novel. And it's the start of the Broken Empire trilogy, which I'm also finishing up, and I'm just going to do a trilogy-wide review, not going to review each individual story, besides the Prince of Thorns. But this is his first one in the Broken Empire, and okay, let's get into it. Rating-wise, I'm going to put this one as solid 6. It's definitely a beginning work. I think there was a couple jumps in between in writing styles where it almost mixed up the styles in between, and there were some parts where you're like, oh wow, that's really confusing, and then he pulls it back together. He definitely saves it in the end, and it pulls together well, but there are some parts in the middle where you're like, whoa, what's going on here? And you read like 3 pages in a row and you have no idea what you just read, and even if you go back and look at it again, you're like, nope, I read that right, that just didn't make sense. So that's a little bit of a negative. Positive, definitely a compelling story. This is, without question, a grimdark novel. It, no spoilers, but it follows a young Prince Georg, and when he's a young boy and he's basically on the road, and there's some dark stuff that happens, and it doesn't pull punches on thinking, wow, you have a young boy doing some of this stuff, and it's a dark novel, but he's also painting the picture of that's what the Broken Empire is. It's almost like the setting has forced him into making these actions, and that's a unique way of writing it. It's a unique take to look at the setting as being what's forced the main character to go down the path he has. It's not original. I mean, obviously others out there have done it, but it definitely breaks some of the other constraints of what fantasy is, and it's a nice grimdark where even still the main character is doing bad things, and sometimes it's not even for a good reason. Sometimes it's just happening to happen. So it's not, oh, it's dark, they're doing this, they're doing that, but they're still the good guy in the end. There's definitely some parts where you're like, is he really the good guy in this story? It's hard to say. It's hard to get behind. He's definitely presented as, you're given the main character and the protagonist. It's very clear, this is a protagonist, this is who you're following. But there are parts where you are like, is this really the protagonist? You sure you don't want to, Mark, you don't want to drop in a different character here? Give the audience a little surprise. Oh no, this wasn't the main guy. It's someone else the whole time. Enough on that though. Like I said, this is a spoiler-free review. I'm not going to spoil anything for you. And let's go into a little bit more on the physical book itself. It's a shorter book. It's just about 350 pages. It's not that long. I'll tell you the next 2 stories are about the same each, about right around 400 pages per book. So the writing's there's not like a ton of writing on a page or anything like that. It's a fairly quick read. You can definitely get through it, and there's no super difficult language. It is a straightforward sort of read. And to finish off, any recommendations to compare this book to? Like, if you like this book, you'll like Prince of Thorns. And that one's harder to make, because it is definitely unique on how dark it goes. Not that there's not other dark books out there, but in dark without the protagonist having a lot of saving features. Like I talk about The Witcher, which is one of my favorite, where it's considered grimdark and Geralt does some dark things, but he has a lot of saving features, and he's a protagonist you get behind. Jorg in this book is not that character. So that was just a long explanation to say almost I don't have a book in mind to offer, hey, if you like this, you'll like Prince of Thorns as well. If you want to read it, I'd say go for it. It's a quick read, if nothing else. So if you don't like it and you don't want to continue the Broken Empire, you didn't lose much. It's a shorter book. It gets to the point. It has a close. but it also leaves you into the trilogy. It's a design trilogy. So if you want to pick up Prince of Thorns, I still say do it. I always recommend and go for, and I'll leave with, this was the beginning trilogy, like Mark Lawrence's first trilogy, and from what I've heard, his trilogies and just story writing gets better and better each time, especially with the most recent one that just finished up was the Holy Sister trilogy. I might not be right on the name, but I know that's one of the books, and he has a new one coming out, which I think it's The Girl of the North. I might be wrong on that, because I just started reading Mark Lawrence, and I think, though, still, from what I've heard, that it gets better, and while this is not my favorite trilogy, if it gets better than this, I will continue on with Mark Lawrence as an author, and I have seen that the books are about the same length, and I do like the length. It's a good read without being a tome. So that's my 2 cents for you on the Prince of Thorns.